Well, we already have such agreements, okay? One is NAFTA, all right, and the Democrats and Republicans alike supported it. So it's kind of a non-issue. I certainly am not. I believe in protecting our industry. I also believe in laws that stop companies from moving from Seattle to South Carolina because they can get cheaper labor. I'm opposed to that. It's a disgrace. And the Republican senators from South Carolina stand up there and defend that. And the corporations, you have to realize they're running this country, folks. Corporations are running this country, and they don't give a spit about patriotism or the things that they're trying to sell you on. Okay, they want you to support these wars because they're making profits from them. Okay, unscrutinized profits and non-competing contracts. That's what's going on. All right, and then they're not going to pay the taxes, and then it just goes on and on and on. So as far as protecting our industry, we're going to have to put tariffs on them. Most people don't realize that prior to World War I, the budget of the United States was supported by tariffs. We had income tax briefly during the Civil War to pay for the Civil War. Then the income tax went away. Then it was tariffs, and tariffs supported our government. Now we don't have hardly any tariffs anymore. Free trade. Well, we need them. We need them back, and we need to put them on now.
I've negotiated and done business around the world, all across Europe, including Russia, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Brazil, China. And it is a mistake to think you are setting up a free trade agreement with these other countries if you don't know their culture. NAFTA was supposed to be a free trade agreement. NAFTA was a terrible deal. There was a clause in there called the Rules of Origin Clause. It cost North Carolina and the Southeast $3.6 million, or 3.6 million jobs going down to Mexico to the maquiladoras. It stated that if you wanted to buy from these companies, you got preferential treatment. It was the garment industry that went away. NAFTA was a terrible deal for everybody, including the Mexicans. If it was such a good deal for them, why are they still coming to America? There were clauses in there that destroyed the rights of the Zapata Indians down in Mexico, that took away their land. We need to realize that you've got to understand the culture of the other country. There was a clause in there that talked about environmental protection. And we assumed that Mexico would go along with that. They signed it, but they had no intention of upholding that. They haven't enforced environmental agreements down there. You've got to know the cultures of the other countries before you set up these agreements. We should repeal NAFTA and CAFTA and renegotiate on what's best for America. Our job in a negotiation is not to save the other country. It's to do what's best for America. When America does well, the other countries and our neighbors do well. Thank you.
I grew up with three sisters. Did you ever play that game, Who Can Hit the Softest? They come up to you and they say, okay, let's see who can hit the softest. And they say, I go first, and they punch you really, really hard, and they say, well, you win. That's kind of what free trade agreements are like. These countries come to us and they say, okay, we want to go ahead and allow handicraft goods or manufacturing or towels, whatever, from the United States into our country, but we need you to go ahead and remove all your tariffs, pay for the shipping, reimburse our shipping containers, give us subsidies, give us financial aid, give us USAID aid, and then we'll go ahead and do the same thing, but you go first. And it never happens. And so we lose jobs, we lose money, we lose taxpayer accountability, and these other countries profit. So I am definitely against any type of free trade agreement. But I am for regionalization here in Western North Carolina with our neighboring states and the creation of World Trade Centers and I-26 style corridors that would allow us to move our goods freely between Western North Carolina and the rest of the country.
This is getting all too friendly up here. Remember Ross Perot said that he heard a giant sucking sound south of the border, and that's exactly what happened with NAFTA. And with all the problems that have already been mentioned here, I think we absolutely need to renegotiate those trade deals. China, in particular, is cheating. They're artificially depressing the value of their yuan, their money, so that their goods are cheaper here. Most estimates are they're depressing it about 30%. I'd like to see us impose a 5% tariff on all Chinese goods, and if they don't straighten out their behavior, then make it a 10% deal the next year, and then a 15% until we reach 30%. I think they'd come around. I think they decide to deal with us on a level playing field. One of the biggest problems, of course, that is hurting us with that foreign trade is that oil has been historically cheap, and therefore it's been cheap to move things here from China. And one of the only good things about the rise up in oil prices globally is that it's making those goods more expensive to ship to the United States. I heard the other day that an iPhone would cost $15 more if it were made here. And I think a lot of us would probably pay that $15 happily. The other problem that we're facing at the same time as the foreign trade that has been way imbalanced is that we've been modernizing, and we can do a lot more. Worker productivity is much higher in the United States. Unfortunately, workers haven't gotten the benefit of that productivity. You hear these figures from the government over and over again. The productivity was up this percent, it was up that percent. Meanwhile, wages have gone flat for the last 25 years.
NAFTA sure rode the back of Western North Carolina out overseas. I mean, the politicians didn't care about Western North Carolina. They would have done an analysis that showed them that 3.5 or 4 million jobs in the Southeast were going to be lost because of NAFTA, and they didn't care. So those politicians are still up there doing their thing because all of these policies are about what's in it for them. And in part, it's because Republicans and corporations have a really close relationship a lot of times. Not always to the good. This has been explained many times over up here. But the corporations are doing pretty well because of overseas jobs. You know why the stock market is so high? Because the corporations are thriving in overseas business and bringing the products back here. But they're also taxing those corporations twice, once overseas and once here. So we're back to the how do we fix this economy business? And there's nothing really more important than fixing the economy to the future of this country, if we have one. I just think that the economy is the source of American power. And really what the federal government has to do is create stability in the marketplace so entrepreneurs know that when they invest money in new business or hiring people, they know what the government policy is and they know how to plan for the future, and they can't do that now, and that's why they're not investing. We have to change the fundamentals.
I never thought I'd stand on a stage with so many Republicans and be the only person in support of free trade. But I think that if you look at what free trade has done for this country, I think that it has actually been good for America, and it's been good for the world. And now, has that come with challenges, particularly in the near term? Yes. Now, I think what we have to recognize and come to terms with is the fact that the world is increasingly very small. And the idea that we can just throw up barriers and prevent trade from happening, and somehow, in the process of doing that, make American manufacturers more competitive here at home, it's just it doesn't make sense, and you can't really do that. Now, I think what we need to do, I agree with the point that Cecil made about why doesn't Apple make their iPhones here in the United States? Well, there was a long article in the New York Times that went into detail about that, and I think the answer is there are a number of things, but a big part of it is the workforce doesn't exist here in the United States, like low-skilled engineers that they have millions of in China that we don't have here because we don't even educate that type of worker here in the United States. I think there are things that we need to do to build a workforce and an economic environment here in the United States that can make us competitive with foreign nations and not try to pretend that they don't exist and throw up barriers to prevent our companies from going abroad. Because if we try to do that, we will fail, and it will set back the United States, and it will take a long time for us to ever climb out of that hole.